This conference will now be recorded.
All right, I'd like to call the Village of Ashwaubenon Public Works and Protection Committee meeting for Wednesday, April 5, 2023. Roll call, please.
Gary Paul.
Here.
John Burnett.
Here.
Joan Euclid.
Here.
Kelly Service.
Here.
And Jake Krieger.
Here.
I pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Action on the agenda. Any corrections or additions?
Move to approve.
Second.
First and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Action on the minutes from the meeting, March 7th, 2023. Any corrections or additions there?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Comments from the public. Must be limited to the items not on the agenda. Must state the name and address, limited to 5 minutes. Board rules to listen. The board's role is to listen and not discuss the items. Personal items cannot be discussed nor names mentioned. Board is not able to take action at this meeting. Now, is there anybody in this room that wants to speak about a subject other than what's on the agenda? One more time, anybody here to speak about something not on the agenda? All right, everybody is here for other reasons. Okay, moving on to action items. Action item 7A. Action on Class B beer/C wine license required for the Ruzziconi Restaurant Group LLC doing business as Riverside Pizzeria of Green Bay. Chris, this is on your agenda here. Chris is our clerk for you people that don't know her.
So this is the Old Heartland Pizza Company, and they originally wanted a Class B beer, Class B liquor, but we don't have any available, so they're requesting the B beer, C wine. And are you in attendance? Okay, so if you have any questions, they're here.
Okay, is that the same license, Chris, that they had when it was Green Bay Pizza?
Yes.
It is?
Heartland
All right.
Pizza.
They did not have liquor there?
No.
Okay, all right. Any questions from the people up there?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We had a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Go get her going. Item B, action on Class A beer/Class A liquor license and Class B beer license required by the Birch Hospitality LLC doing business as the Wingate of Wyndham Green Bay/Airport. Chris, one more time.
So this company took over the Wingate, and they are requesting the same type of license that the old Wingate had. They have a sundry store, so they need the Class A beer, Class A liquor to be able to sell the closed containers. And then they have, they're requesting a Class B beer license for the lobby and breakfast room and the 80 guest rooms, and it would exclude the sundry store. So it's two separate applications because the premises are different.
But Chris, is really not anything more than what they had before, correct?
Correct, same thing.
Correct. Okay.
But it is the same.
Yes.
Oh, okay, all right. You had me on that one. Okay.
Do we need two separate motions then, Chris, or will one be sufficient?
I put it all on one, so
Okay.
one should be fine.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, move to, I've got a first,
I'll second.
second from John, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Item C, which I'm sure is why we have a crowd tonight. Action C, action regarding proposed ordinance amendment requiring short-term rentals. Aaron, you're taking off on this one. Aaron is a community development director for you people who don't know.
All right, thank you, Gary. The proposed ordinance amendment to the village's current short-term rental ordinance would require a minimum 6-night stay as proposed to be amended. Currently, there is no minimum night requirement under our current code. So in addition to the minimum 6-night stay, there are a few additional kind of miscellaneous cleanup items, such as requiring ground fault circuit interrupt outlets near wet locations, so on and so forth. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. In the meantime, I'm sure there are a number of people here who would like to speak regarding this proposal.
I have a couple questions first, clarification questions, Aaron. So this would be for rentals that are above the number of 10 in a current year, correct?
That's correct. So any rentals, any short-term rentals between July 1st and June 30th annually, any short-term rentals that have 11 or more nights per year are required to be licensed by the Village of Ashwaubenon.
Okay.
Anything less than 10 or fewer nights per year is not required to have the Ashwaubenon license, and this would not apply to them.
Is it stays or is it nights?
We're kind of going back and forth on that, but it's basically nights, but I can certainly hand it off to Patrick on that.
So the statute says that we have the authority, that villages or municipalities have the authority to regulate no more than 7 or more days consecutive. So as it reads right now, it is technically correct. On the 7th day, it can be re-rented to a different renter or a party. Mm-hmm. However, if approved, if recommended for approval going to the village board, I would recommend that it be with staff corrections. How it's cleaner and how it's not written technically right now, but it is cleaner to say 6 consecutive nights rather than how it reads as 7 consecutive days. So
my question is more around, Patrick, about the 10 events or 10 days. That's where I'm a little bit foggy, and I think the audience would help with being clarified. So if somebody rents out their place 10 times,
yes,
in a year, that's not called at this point, that it wouldn't fall underneath this ordinance, correct?
anything more than 10 times, one day, one night being one individual time, and then
Correct.
anything above that would be applicable to the village's ordinance.
Okay, so if they've rented out only 10 times, which obviously Packer games and other events, it doesn't fall underneath this ordinance, but the 11th time, it does fall underneath this ordinance.
And to be clear, so out of those 10 times, those would be 10 individual nights.
Correct.
So you can't rent it 10 times. That accounts for 25 overnight stays.
Right.
It would be 10 nights that would result in whether that threshold of licensing or non-licensing by the Village of Ashwaubenon.
Again, is it nights or stays?
It'd be nights.
So if there's a 2-night minimum, it would be 2 nights out of the 10.
Those 2 nights would count against that 10-night requirement, or that 10-night threshold, I should say. So,
Okay. So it's not really 10 stays, it's 10 nights.
correct.
Okay. And then what is the state statute? What does it say, and what do we have to abide by according to the state statute?
If I understand your question correctly, so our municipal code presently, less the current proposal for amendment to have the 6-night minimum requirement or the 7 consecutive days, is aligned with current statutes. So anything greater than 10 nights must be licensed by the local municipality. That's been adopted and codified by the Village of Ashwaubenon. So short-term rentals are required to be licensed by the village if they exceed that 10-night minimum. In addition to that, we have the 180-day requirement. So upon the first night of rental, they can only rent that property for 180 days over that 180-day period. over that 365-day licensing period. That is consistent with statute as well. Again, the change is predominantly adding that additional restriction of that 6-night minimum stay requirement that is allowable or permissible under statute.
Is that not saying that our current ordinance really isn't falling underneath the state statute?
Our current ordinance meets the statutory requirements. We
But I
are
thought they had a minimum of
less
6.
restrictive than statute at present. What this proposed ordinance amendment would do would coincide and match the most restrictive aspect of Wisconsin statute related to short-term rentals.
Okay.
So if this is adopted, they could really only rent their property twice before they would need the license. Because if it's a 6-night minimum and at 10 nights, you have to get the license, the second time they rent it, it'll be 12.
Good question. No, so in fact, if you rented for no more than 10 nights, so 10 would be your maximum, you theoretically would not need to be licensed by the Village of Ashwaubenon. And in that regard, you could rent to individual renters for 1 night up to that 10-day minimum. If they are going to rent it more than 10 nights, so 11 nights or greater, it requires a license then at that point. And then that license would then require you to rent it no fewer than 6 consecutive nights or 7 consecutive days. If that makes sense.
Okay, on the same ruling, let's say somebody gets a party that's interested in a longer period of time, months. What rules do they have to go by then? Does that become just a long-term rental and avoid the short-term jurisdictions?
That's correct. So anything greater than 29 or greater days per month. So basically a month becomes a month-to-month lease, and it's just a standard lease and contract between the landlord and the renter.
Okay, okay. The other question I have, this ordinance, or I shouldn't say this 6-day, 7-day that we're talking about, how many other municipalities have this? This is nothing new that we're creating here. I'd like to know, let these people know that we're not the first in doing something like this.
Correct, we're not. I did some pretty thorough research on it. After stopping, I think I stopped at 15 or 16 municipalities. So I know there's more out there, I just stopped looking. Let's put it that way. But with that said, they've been on the books, as far as I can tell, for a few years now, so far. De Pere has it, closest municipality to us. And other ones are kind of the surrounding, like Lake Geneva areas or some in Door County.
Okay. I was going to say, all these municipalities are pretty much some big, like Wisconsin Dells, Door County is a big one, I know.
Lake Geneva, Wisconsin Dells has one. I believe Madison has it too.
Madison is another one, correct. So I just want to bring that up so that other areas have this and they are enforcing it also. So, okay, anything else from the staff that they want to present?
I guess, are there any other options that are out there besides kind of doing this, or, leaving it status quo or changing it to this, or is this kind of the only 2 options we have?
I presume that you could lawfully, certainly within the confines right now, there aren't any restrictions, so you can rent out for a singular night or day rental up to that 29-day threshold, if you will, to fall within the kind of definition of a short-term rental. Theoretically, you could pick, okay, a minimum of 2-night stay, 3-night stay, 5-night stay, 6-night stay, but you could not require more than that 6-night stay under the current statutes.
And there would be a possibility that we could write the statute to grandfather in the current license holder to be able to basically keep the status that they have right now, and then anybody new coming in for a license could fall underneath this ordinance. Is that true?
Yes, you can. So the board could, or the committee could make a recommendation to the board to adopt the ordinance. However, the exemption would apply for current licensees for currently licensed by the Village of Ashwaubenon, let's put it that way. So we would have some kind of language written into the code, but for current licensees.
Okay.
And then the suggestion on top of that would be that you kind of lose that grandfather status if there's any kind of sale of the property.
Right.
Do we know what Green Bay is doing? Because some of the homes like across Lombardia, those are Green Bay, right?
At this time, to my knowledge, they aren't taking action on it. They do regulate short-term rentals, similar to our current ordinance.
And De Pere just, I shouldn't say just, but they did go with a new policy that we're talking about right now.
They have 6-night minimum or 6 consecutive days for their R1 and R2 zone properties.
And this is what we're talking about, is R1 and R2.
For ours, it's a little bit different. It's all single family, well, so somewhat similar. Yes, it's all single family, 2-family housing. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions with the?
Did we consider, like, one of the letters that came in said, like, the hotel minimum is 2-night stay or 3-night stay, whatever it was, I don't remember what they said, but did we consider maybe doing that? Instead of going right up to 6?
So hotels, of course, are under a different regulatory framework completely, so are not considered short-term rentals under the statute. But as Joel had mentioned earlier, you certainly can take a look at different options, whether it's 2 nights, 3 nights, 4 nights, 5 nights. You just can't go beyond the 6-night minimum under the statutory framework.
Any other questions? All right, before,
I have a
go
question.
ahead, go ahead.
Under C, number 3 says the dwelling only applies for the dwelling unit is for single-family and 2-family homes. Why doesn't this cover multifamily homes?
That was a good question. We have found that the primary impacts that we're hearing about are coming from primarily single-family and 2-family homes. We haven't really heard impacts on the multifamily developments.
So what you're saying there, Aaron, is most of the complaints that we receive are from the people that are in the single-family neighborhoods or multifamily or duplexes or single-family homes. That's where we're receiving the complaints from the public about rentals next door to them and things like that.
That's correct. That's what I'm hearing anyway when I get a complaint.
Okay.
Anybody else? If not, we'll open up the floor, but we're going to open it up for 40 minutes total. It doesn't mean one person can talk 40 minutes. Total 40 minutes. Say your piece, because we're going to start overhearing the same thing. So if we could.
I'll make a motion to open the floor.
Second.
All right, we're doing this at 6:18, okay? Got a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, anybody coming up that wants to speak on what their thoughts and ideas are, come up, pull the mic in front of your voice, and state your name and address for the record so that we know if there's any contacting or whatever else we want to find out from you, we know who we're talking to. So up to you people on what you want to say. First come, first.
Hi, my name is Paul Steinbrecher, 1281 Canterbury Road in Ashwaubenon. I guess my first question is, what's driving this? So what changed? What's happening that this is coming about? This ordinance was written several years ago. I mean, assuming most people that here are complying with the rules, so something's happening. I know a lot of properties are being bought up, but there's got to be something out there that's driving the village to want to make that change. If that could be addressed so we can understand what's happening with that, what's pushing this forward.
I think, and I can't speak for the village board, individual trustees, but it is our understanding from a staff perspective that there have been a number of complaints from local residents, predominantly in those R1, R2 zoning districts that live close to or adjacent to these short-term rentals, and at times there are challenges with those rentals from a nuisance standpoint, whether it's noise, drinking, things of that nature, parking, some of the challenges that come with it, and then the frequency of the in and out of transient users of those properties. And so we routinely get complaints from our residents regarding those issues, and so it was presented to us by members of our board to consider crafting more restrictive components of our current ordinance, certainly within the confines of what's allowable under law under the statutes. So that's really what's kind of driving this interest.
So are we thinking if licensure is required to have these type of short-term rental properties, if you get a bunch of complaints, say, about your property, that then the next year we would not renew their license?
And Patrick can probably address this a little bit more in detail, but yes, I mean, there's certainly a public nuisance provision within our code. So if there are a number of very, very specific problems that continue on with that particular renter, then we can follow our chronic nuisance ordinance that could then result in the loss of licensure for that short-term rental.
So,
I don't have much to add. That's accurate. It can be non-renewed at time or revoked based on the impact that it has or number of violations that the, I guess, renters have from the license on behalf of the licensee.
have we had any of those?
Not to my knowledge, no.
I was going to say, I haven't heard any. I represent the 3rd and 4th Ward. That's the hottest wards around here. It contains most of you people around the Packer area. We got a gentleman in the audience there, Chris Zerbel. He is 5 and 6. It runs down into his area. It's all over the village. We used to control this at one time when the stadium district was built. And anything that was in front of the Packer property, that was in the zone where you could have a short-term rental. Patrick, you want to get into why we lost that ability to control, or Joel, whichever one, to let them know that we lost that power to control it within the village? Around the Packer property.
Sure. The short answer is in 2017, as part of the budget bill, Act 59 was passed that prohibited local municipalities for providing additional controls or regulations related to short-term rentals. And the statutes effectively created very specific confines, if you will, for local jurisdictions to use to regulate short-term rentals. So back in 2017 was the predominant date of when those regulations went into effect. And as a result, it's really limiting to local control as to what we can and cannot regulate with regards to short-term rentals.
Could we limit the number of licenses, like with a liquor license? Could we just say we're only going to have a percentage of our population in short-term rentals and we're already over it, so nobody else can do that?
Unfortunately, at this time, we cannot.
Okay, anybody would like to speak?
Good evening. Excuse me. My name is Mark Thanen. I'm a partner in a company called Powerhouse Properties 920, and I am also a town supervisor for the town of Ledgeview. So I respect your position, and it's unusual to be on this side. I appreciate some of the commentary that's coming from you, ma'am, and I'd like to take a minute and explain a little bit about why I believe that this proposed amendment is detrimental to the village of Ashwaubenon and the surrounding area. So currently, my company manages over 100 short-term rental properties in Brown and Outagamie County. Not necessarily, or not at all, in vacation areas like Door County, Lake Geneva, the Wisconsin Dells. The people that our homes serve are coming to the area for a multitude of reasons. The 3 that I currently have in Ashwaubenon, they are booked right now, 1 for a traveling medical professional and 2 for family emergencies. The Packer season, though it's important, is not the driving reason that people come to this area. It might be for those 8 weekends. Our homes, this is a business, and we treat it professionally, and we regulate it. We screen every guest that rents a home of ours. We have strict rules that prohibit parties, that prohibit large gatherings, noise, etc. So, and by taking away the ability to have people come to this area and choose a home versus a hotel would really have unnecessarily negative repercussions for those people traveling to this area. As I'm sure you are all well aware, our homes, by having the license here in Ashwaubenon, we pay sales and room tax, just like a hotel. But we also support the local businesses by people that are here for a few nights or a week or what have you. They're eating at the restaurants in Ashwaubenon. They're getting gas at the gas stations. They're going to the hardware stores. So they're supporting the local economy. But they're not here to party. They're not here to have, you know, that's not the reason that they're in these homes. I can speak for ours. So I would humbly ask this committee to really consider all other options, whether that be restricting the number of licenses you provide or perhaps taking away the license of those who have continued, you know, misbehavior. But by making a blanket 6-night minimum is in essence going to take away that lodging option for all of those different people. We rent our homes all year long. And I can tell you, if I looked back before this meeting to look back at all of the reasons that people have come to stay in our homes in Green Bay and Ashwaubenon and et cetera. Again, Packer season is 8 times a year, and that's it. So we want to be able to serve these people in Ashwaubenon with the homes that we have. We don't want to tell them that they can't stay here. But a 6-night minimum would take these properties out of, we wouldn't be able to continue to offer that. So again, I ask this committee for really thinking this through, maybe punishing those property owners that are not playing by the rules, but please don't let that affect all of those of us that are running an honorable business and bringing value and tax money to the village of Ashwaubenon.
Good. Question for you. You being in the business, naming a number of areas that you service, how many people how many areas are you in that has the 6-night minimum?
None, actually. So our primary locations are the city of Green Bay. We do have a couple in Ledgeview. We don't have a minimum stay requirement. Appleton, Oshkosh, Grand Chute. We do have one in Door County that is not in one of those local municipalities that has a 7-night stay. But again, when people go to Door County or they go to some of these other areas, they're likely to stay for a week because maybe it's a vacation.
I was going to say Door County is.
But when they come to Ashwaubenon, even for any reason, it's be rare for somebody to be able to spend 6 nights here. So yeah, our business, our 100 and some properties are all in areas right around here. So I know there are some municipalities that do have that 6-night stay, Deep here being one of them. But I can tell you in my discussions with the city, that hasn't been looked at in many, many years. That was something that was kind of signed in years ago, but it hasn't been, I don't know that there's really a driving reason for that.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mandy Williams. I live at 2100 South Oneida, which is actually just right across from Buffalo Wild Wings. I'd like to commend the previous gentleman. We are talking about 24 nights that I believe is where these complaints are coming from. That wasn't clear from the testimony, but I'd like to see where those complaints are coming from and when they're coming from. Because the other 341 nights a year, if those aren't a problem, I'm not sure why we're going to impose an ordinance on these businesses. These businesses bring people into Ashwaubenon and keep them there. The overall plan for the Packers is to create housing and restaurants and stores on their property to keep people there. Ashwaubenon should be looking to keep people in Ashwaubenon to frequent our restaurants, to frequent our stores. It's going to just actually bring in more money overall. If they can't, they'll go to Green Bay. They'll spend more time in Green Bay. They'll pay the taxes for their property in Green Bay. So that 18%, it's roughly about 18% that's paid in those taxes for the Airbnbs, things like that, the short-term rentals. Why don't we want that money here? I think that the reality is we do want that money here. We want to take care of the problems. And I think that's where the lady mentioned, you know, we should be enforcing those rules. We have rules that are on our ordinances, and those should be enforced, and then those licenses should be taken. Until we try that, we don't know if that's not going to work. Until we try that, we really shouldn't be moving to then just throw a blanket over the rest of the year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kurt Grunwald. I own the place at 910 Stadium Drive. And one thing I just wanted to bring up is you guys mentioned about grandfathering, you know, licenses in. I purchased the property 3 years ago, and I bought it with the intent to, you know, short-term rental. It's adjacent to the Packers property, so it's ideal. And to me, it doesn't make any sense to grandfather other people in because I have an ideal property. I haven't rented it out, but I would like to rent it out, and I think it's in a perfect location. And I will follow all the rules, and I guess I don't see an issue with the short-term rentals, and I support everybody that, you know, came up here and said their piece, but I just wanted to, you know, clarify my position on grandfathering. I purchased the property, spent a lot of money on it. I intend to follow the rules and support the community, and I think it would be ideal for short-term rentals. And I guess that's all you know, so please consider me as well in your thoughts, but I support the current condition that we have today, so thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Logan Donovan. I'm one of the owners at 1014 Morris Avenue. Mason, Sydney, and I are all the products of this wonderful community, and we couldn't be more proud of that. In 2020, right around the start of the... Do you mind if I use this one? Right around the start of the pandemic, we bought a property near Lambeau Field together. I knew of this property since I was in high school. Friends working at the village over the summer would take turns going over to the house and mowing the lawn there, usually when it was close to a foot tall. The owner at that time couldn't care less about what the property looked like to others, not his neighbors, not village workers, and certainly not out-of-towners. But this house is in no sense hidden from the light of day, quite the contrary. It's on the corner of one of the most trafficked intersections in residential Ashwaubenon. It was hideous and vacant for years before he bought it. What replaced it is a beautiful modern home that we are truly proud of. But this didn't come to be overnight. It was 3 impassioned residents of this community who poured countless hours and gallons of sweat into that property, knocking down walls, tearing out vanities from the 70s, and landscaping an overgrown, rodent-ridden exterior, all to make it a presentable piece of the neighborhood. But we are not alone. Many others have done the same in the last several years, and I argue that the neighborhood and community as a whole has significantly benefited from the work that we have done with these properties. With that said, the property that we own and write to you about is an investment. We have invested our own time, money, and energy into this venture. But what you should know is that the village of Ashwaubenon and all of its residents and are benefactors of this deal as well, just as we are. Since purchasing the property not even 3 years ago, taxes have increased over 50%. This happened because the property is finally worth something again. Moreover, the village collects fees each year to apply and maintain short-term rental status, and collects thousands more in remitted occupancy taxes. These taxes come mostly from people outside of our community, so this is a very real net positive for our village. Now multiply that by scores of improved homes in the Lambeau neighborhood, and you have a substantial increase in tax revenue that pays back dividends to the village in the form of education, social and youth programs, and so much more. All of this without taking into account the positive impact all of our guests have on small, locally owned businesses through increased traffic and demand. It is with these points that we want to state our opposition to this proposed ordinance that would increase the minimum night stay to 6. It's unfair to rewrite the rules of the game now that we're all playing that game. Investors have staked much of their own capital in properties near Lambeau Field based on existing ordinances and regulations at the time of purchase. Changing these shifts the ground beneath us and disincentivizes further positive investment in this area. But make no mistake, by passing this proposal, we would not be undoing all of the work and the capital that has gone into these properties, nor would there be an increase in affordable housing inventory going forward, as some may hope for. As long as there is a tourist destination like Lambeau Field in the Titletown District, there will be a demand from fans to visit, and therefore a housing market to host those fans. We are unique with Green Bay, not likened to De Pere. That's based purely on our geographic location next to Lambeau Field. And we'd be severely undermining our own residents if we were to make the 6-night minimum stay go into effect, while neighbors across Lombardy Avenue have just a 2-night. We'd be driving that tax revenue elsewhere. Of course, no one would like or benefit from this new proposal more than chain hotels, so they could maintain a monopoly on weekends when Packer games or other events are in town. Instead of a resident renting out their home and taking a vacation with the money, or a local investing in their own community, the hotels would love it if we could pad their bottom lines somewhere else in a big city far away from Ashwaubenon. We are so proud of this village that helped to raise us, and we know that you're all proud of it too. We have worked hard to leave it better than we found it, and I truly believe we had done that with this property. We took a property that was an eyesore for this community and turned it into a home that passersby and neighbors thank us about to this day. We are thankful and blessed to be able to do it, and we ask that you please vote in opposition to the proposed ordinance so that we can continue to operate as we were promised. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Lee Annenson. I represent the Green Bay Moose Lodge at 846 Morris Avenue. We currently have about 1,730 members. We purchased a property with the intent actually to complete our property. It adjoins our property. But the intent was to turn it into short-term rental to help defray the costs of it. We invested a substantial amount of money into the building, as did most people who bought these buildings to do that, to make them short-term rentals. Ashwaubenon and Green Bay are destinations. The people come here for Lambeau Field and for the Resch Center and all the events going on. They need a place to stay. We are putting up hotels. In fact, there's one going up right next to me right now. But like this one other gentleman said, people sometimes want a residence to stay in. And they can't afford a 7-day stay, but they can afford a 2-day stay, 3-day stay, whatever. So I think it's a little unfair to come up with this at this point in time when people have invested so much money. We are in the process of licensing the property for a short-term rental ourselves. The money that we make off of this is going to go to defray the cost of that house. The money we make as a fraternity goes to community service, to help veterans, homeless, people in the community. We do a lot of community service, so we're not looking to take money out of the community. We're looking to make money to put it back into the community. This would be detrimental to us, to limit us for that 7-day stay. I don't know how we would do it. I just don't know how we would survive doing it that way. We would either have to get rid of the house, tear it down, make it a parking lot, or some other thing. But we should consider the people that have invested so much money in these properties to make our community better. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. Anybody else? Got a few minutes here before your time's up.
Hello, Chris Herbal, 1274 April Lane. I am the trustee for wards 5 and 6. I don't know if I want to stand or sit or stand and address everybody. Maybe I'll stand. I'm not used to this, but I understand everybody's concerns here, I really do. And as I can't speak for everybody up here, but the people I have talked to here over time, we're not robots here. You know, we're compassionate people up here and understand the time and investment and everything you guys have done. But I'm hoping you also understand this is just about, it's more than just simply shutting houses down. I never had a problem with them when it first came about. I live in an area right by Lambeau Field, and I'm excited every Packer weekend, and most of the houses there are kept up very well. I've had very few complaints from people. When it's happened, it's been addressed, and addressed quickly. It's not about individual houses or who's owning them. What's happening to our neighborhood, though, is the issue. You know, we're accountable to our citizens here, and we're starting to lose our neighborhoods. And that's what their concern is, and that's what our concern is. We've got to get families in here that are putting kids into the school system, using our school system, because they rely on that. Unfortunately, it's always comes down to the dollar. That's their funding is how many kids come into the school system. So it's not just, you know, I get what everybody's saying. Taxes have gone up in those areas, but if you ask people that are lifelong residents, they're not happy about that. You know, for the amount of money that people have paid for these houses, it's driven everything up. And the residents in these areas that I hear from, they're not happy about that. Bringing income into the area, yeah, you do when the house is rented, but nothing's coming in when it's empty. You know, to me, that's a wash. But our job here is to make sure that we have a vibrant, safe community going forward, and our neighborhoods are important to us. That's what I hear from my constituents. They're starting to lose their neighborhood. It's gotten to the point where every house sold in my wards, virtually every one, is going to a Airbnb, and it's killing our neighborhoods. And we're not the only community. It's happening too. You know, you can check it out. Check out Sebastopol up in Door County. It's happening up there, and it's going to happen in a hurry. It's killing communities. Nothing against what any of you guys have done here. And I've talked to everybody I've got a phone call from. I've said, please be patient. Let us try to figure this out. We've got nothing against anybody here, what you're doing. Most of these houses are beautiful. I'd love to have them. A lot of our neighborhoods have. In my neighborhood, we dealt with a drug house for 2 or 3 years, my wife and I, that documented things day in and day out, and just not fought with the police, but fought to get that corrected. I would rather have a Packer house over there empty 90% of the time. You know, most of these houses are very well maintained and safe. But again, I'll go back to, we've got to keep our job is to keep our community, our neighborhoods together. Ashwaubenon. Most of the people that have these houses are not from Ashwaubenon, whether that matters or not. But that's our job here, and I don't think that's going to change for anybody up here. But please, I'm just asking for patience. Let us work through this. We want to work with you guys and maybe come up with something. It might not get solved tonight, but maybe between now and the next board meeting, where everybody can sit down and just say, that works for us. So that's Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Have time for one more yet?
Good evening. My name is Chris Keel. I live at 1217 Valley View Road. And I'm actually looking for more of a clarification from what I just heard on some of this. So is what you're saying that the 6-night minimum, we Airbnb our house, we just started last year. We own our own home, so we don't live out of the neighborhood or live somewhere else. We're Ashwaubenon residents. We do it to make a little bit of extra money for retirement, upgrading our property and so forth. We put some money into our house to make sure it was upgraded so people would want to stay there and we have a nice home. Are you saying that the 10-night minimum, so we do 5 nights during Packer season, that's 10 nights because we do a 2-night minimum at our home. Am I not falling then into that category where I'm going to be required to have a 6-night minimum because I am under 10 nights or less? Is that what I'm hearing?
Aaron, can you, or Joel, answer?
So as it stands right now, the code or the statutes allow for the village to regulate or license properties that have stays for 11 nights or more per year. And of course, our year is July 1st through June 30th. So if during that course of time, you have 10 or fewer nights per year, you would only need the Brown County license, and therefore you would not be subject to the Ashwaubenon licensing requirements.
So what you're saying is the $500 fee I paid last year to have the building inspector come over to my house, I no longer have to pay that then? I can only have to have my Brown County health inspection. I no longer have to pay the $500 fee in Ashwaubenon and be regulated by that?
If you rent for 10 or fewer nights per year, that's correct.
And is that something new? Because I paid $500 last year and I had 10 nights or less.
No, that's not new. That's been in effect since the start of the legislation.
Why wasn't I told that last year when I paid my $500 fee? It was just told I needed to have the Brown County health inspector come in and I needed to have the $500 Ashwaubenon permit and the building inspector come in. I was only at 8 nights last year. So am I going to get a refund of that $500 or is it going to be explained more in depth to people who are coming to you to get these permits, so to speak, that are not going to be doing 10, 12, 20 nights? I'm only doing 10 nights or less. Why was I subjected to the $500 fee then and not told that I didn't need to have to pay that if that's all I was going to do?
Certainly a fair question. The issue, though, when applications and applicants come in, we don't ask how many nights you are going to rent, because when you come to the village to get your license, we assume it's going to be more than 10 nights. So you had the authority and the discretion to do as many nights last year, more than 10 last year, because you did have the license. When we see the applications and for licenses and we give them out, village staff is assuming at that point they're going to be more than 10 nights because they're here already getting one. 10 or less nights, you don't need one from the village, just authorized by the county.
Well, that's good to know now. I think that's something that if you're going to move forward with it, that perhaps you want to tell people when they come down or make that as a written statement saying, you know, if you're only going to do this 10 nights a year or less, you don't need to have to pay this $500 fee, which we did, because we do 2-night minimum, we did 4 games, so we did 8 nights. Yet I was subjected to pay the $500, have the building inspector come in and make sure everything was done. So I think moving forward, you're going to want to make sure that there's a clarification that people know that, rather than just the assumption of, I want to do 20 nights or 10 nights and that's why I'm going to pay that. So I think that's only fair to people who are coming to you to get these short-term rental permits, that you inform them that they don't have to pay that fee if they're going to be under 10 nights a year or less. And then on the other hand, I also have to agree with the people here who are putting money into these properties, particularly people who are owning their own properties and putting money into it and trying to make a little extra cash, because we are so lucky to be close to a destination like the Lambeau Field and the Packers. So I think it's only fair to those people that you take a look at that ordinance pretty hard about making it a 6-night minimum when they've done a lot of work to upgrade their properties, particularly people who live in those properties that are, you know, trying to be good citizens of Ashwaubenon and are making sure that, you know, people that are there are making sure they're not having problems or causing issues. I mean, we're pretty strict with the people that stay with us. And another thing that I think of when Chris was up here about losing our neighborhoods, I guess you could look at it that way, but if you want to take a look at that, let's draw a radius around, and I'd be interested to see what the statistics are on how many Airbnbs are being purchased by companies or people from out of state, from somewhere else, outside of about a mile around Lambeau Field. You can't tell me that somebody's buying a house over on Carroll Lane, or somebody's buying a house over on the end of Cormier Road, that they're trying to set up an Airbnb there, because unfortunately they're just not close enough where there's going to be the type of interest that there is in my house, because I only live a block and a half away. So I don't know that I agree with that we're losing our neighborhoods in particular. I know all the Airbnbs that are right around me, there are 3 or 4 in our neighborhood, are all owned by the families that live there. So I would object to the 6-night minimum, or at least have it taken a look at to see, is that really something that you want to do? Because I think those people that are coming in are spending money here in the town. Grocery stores, Cops over there, Red Lobster, whatever is in our area, and they're putting money into the community. And for those people who put the money into their homes to try and make a little extra money in doing the Airbnb, I think a little more clarification on the 10 nights or less, so we're not paying a $500 fee when I didn't have to. And also, I guess just, is it really breaking up neighborhoods? I don't think it's that bad, at least from my perspective, but I don't get phone calls. I'm not an alderman or anything, so I don't know, what everybody's saying, but that's just my opinion on it, so.
I just want to add to that, for all the comments I get from people in my district, they're losing their neighborhood. Now, where I live, I can see homes going up for sale, and I've seen 4 of them in the last 18 months. One of them went to a family. The rest were all short-term rentals.
And I can't speak to that because I don't know the information on that. I just, from looking around where I am and just being an individual homeowner that is doing the Airbnb, and we're just trying to get, 4 or 5 games just to make a little extra money on the side to help pay some bills and get ready for retirement and put money back into our property.
Yeah, Chris, you definitely have a different take on it than what a lot of people are that are actually investing and actually have companies and businesses, and yeah, totally understand it.
Yeah,
Thank you for your comments.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Real quick, because you ran out of time, right? You got a two-sentence deal, get up here quick, because I'm going to close the floor after you.
To the staff of the Village of Ashwaubenon, a clarifying question for you. So the new cycle you said starts on July 1st, that's correct? Okay. The Packer schedule comes out in about a month. We will be booking up like almost all of those nights, and we've already booked nights, into the future beyond July 1st. What's going to happen with those stays if this ordinance were to be adopted? What would happen to those stays that were less than 6 nights already on the calendar? People are already expecting to come to town.
So unfortunately, with this ordinance, we don't take the Packer season into consideration. It has to be year-round. So when it's enacted, however the stays are already affected, how it's written and how it will be enacted and enforced is that tenants or renters will have to be there a minimum 6 nights.
Should we cancel those reservations then?
It's up to you. That is completely up to you. I can't speak on that. 1, primarily because it's just being discussed and considered, it's not even being passed. But 2, that's up to the actual, the owner and the licensee of the short-term rental.
Okay. That is a ramification of the ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay, I need a motion to close the floor.
Gary, if I could just add some context too, there was some conversation about what information we provide to prospective applicants for short-term rental licenses or individuals that may inquire about what the requirements are locally. And traditionally, our staff will correspond with individuals that put in a request for a short-term license. And one of the key components of that is that provision that if you are looking to rent your home out during a licensing period, so July 1 through June 30th, and it's for less than 10 nights or 10 or fewer nights, you do not need to get a Village of Ashwaubenon short-term rental license. So we do inform individuals. In fact, I believe I have a correspondence here to Chris or his family indicating that in that correspondence. So if the inquiry comes to us and it's specific to a short-term rental license, we do have kind of a boilerplate that we send to individuals in writing that outlines and details the specifics of the requirements of the licensing.
Okay, thank you. All right, can I have a motion to close the floor, please?
Second.
I'll move to close the floor.
All right, first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, what do we want to do here? You've heard the comments from the public. Chris, thank you for your speech. I think, as you notice, you've got 5 of the village board people here tonight. I got Chris Atkinson sitting at the table there. We're all concerned about it. You pretty much said it when you said we are concerned for the village. We may represent just different districts, but when we do something, it's for the village, the 17,000 people that we represent here. So we try and be fair with everybody. So I guess the next question is, where do we want to go from here?
I think a comment I'd like to make is, I think some additional information is coming forward that I would like staff to be considering around, I think our definition of short-term rental has different definitions. I mean, we had Chris talk about the way that he's doing. We have people who have invested and actually have companies. I think there are different rules and different ways that we need to build some ordinance to kind of support that and try to continue to keep the residents happy and keep those neighborhoods together, like Chris mentioned. I think that's very important. But in, for example, the one that Mr. Keel brought up, they're residents. They're staying there. They're doing that. I know that that is actually happening in other areas of Ashwaubenon that is not within the vicinity, within the stadium district. So I know there are other families that are doing similar things. So I think there are different categories. And I think at this point, and I will agree, we're trying to put a broad brush on it. I think maybe we need to do better definition and refine the ordinance more before we actually move it forward and give more clarity to it. Because I think there are different levels of it, and I think it needs to be looked at it. But I do agree, and I would really like to see a show of hands of how many people here live in Ashwaubenon. Okay.
Jay, just to address that so we don't kind of add confusion, unfortunately, the statutes do not allow us for broadening the definition of that short-term rental, whether it's owner-occupied or not. And so that's where that unfortunate broad brush comes into play. We wouldn't be able to discriminate from that perspective within our ordinance. It had been allowed previously under prior statutes prior to 2017. So you do see maybe some legacy ordinances out there that aren't compliant with statutes that have owner-occupied tourist-type destination homes. Unfortunately, the way the statutes are written now, we cannot create that kind of tiered structure between whether it's owner-occupied and being rented or owned and operated, let's say, out of state or through a private management company.
Yeah, I see that presenting an issue then, because we do have to worry about our residents that are here, and I do understand that a lot of you have made investments in Ashwaubenon, and we have to respect that. And I think we are going to be hurting one or the other by the decision here. So.
Okay, what do we want to recommend?
I have a question and then I have a comment too. But my question is on that 180-day segment of the proposed ordinance. I read that to be, if there's a 6-night minimum and you can only rent it 180 days, you can only rent it 30 times. But are you saying it's a 180-day running consecutive day period where, like, once you start, let's say you rent the first time on July 1st, you're done, like halfway through the year, or can you like chop it up? And still rent until June the following year, as long as it's only 180 days rented.
180 days consecutive from the first night you rent. So maximum of 180 days within a 365-day annual license period. The municipalities don't have the authority to tell you when to start that first day or first night, but once you start that first day or first night, you only get 180 days consecutive.
And to be clear, that provision exists currently with our ordinance. That is not an inclusion as part of this amendment. So that provision exists today, but you just don't have the 6-night minimum tied to that.
Correct. It was just more of a cleanup with the ordinance changes.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like I've only heard one side of the story as well. I think what we need to do is we need to hear the other side of the story. I would like to see residents come and give us their side of the story to help us as village trustees to be able to make a decision like this.
That's true. I mean, we each have had our people call us, and my comment was going to be that I personally have had experience with people who are trying to find housing in Ashwaubenon in the $185,000 to $215,000 range, which a lot of those places would fall, but they're getting snatched up and,
Right.
built into party places. And I'm struggling with the conflict between having some of those properties available for these young families who will put their kids in our school. I mean, if your school district dies, your community is not healthy. So I am struggling with that, how to balance that against the, the opportunity for these businesses to make money.
Is it possible that staff could blanket those neighborhoods? Basically, Gary's 2 wards and Chris's 2 wards, I'd really like to see them. And then we get publications and get information mailed out to them so that we can get them to meetings so that the residents can kind of be giving their side of the story as well.
Chris and Jay, you're saying have an open forum with all the residents who ever want to appear in a meeting.
Correct.
To get the residents' viewpoint and the viewpoint of whoever.
We got the owner's viewpoints here.
Right.
And they're very valid. Don't let me discount them. But I'd like to hear the neighbors of yours, their comments. And I'll be honest, I did talk to one of them that is in one of Chris's wards today. And they said, well, where they are, they said, yeah, it isn't really bothering them. But they also said they don't really have people renting them. It's like there's people who have bought them, but they only come in for Packer games. Only come in for, and they aren't really renting them. So I would really like to hear the other side of it to try to understand their viewpoint and then be able to make a decision from there.
So why aren't they here tonight? Yeah, where? That's what this meeting is. Excuse me, but I'm a resident. I don't rent my house or anything.
Yeah, if I can just address that too.
So that's you. I'm just saying I want to hear from more of them is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, we've had, no, hold it. We've had meetings like that in the past. Joel and Aaron, I don't think you were here, but we've had issues down in this particular area. We're going back to a subject that pertains not to rentals, but we've had open forums for everybody. Now, everybody has a computer or some means of communication on what the village publishes daily for the month. Those people had the right to come here as you did. So if they haven't showed, that's one thing. But I don't get complaints from you people. I get complaints from the people that live within the areas of the home, of the party homes. And it's not necessarily the ones that own the home and use it for a event lodging here. It's the ones that transition the people every event. That's the ones we get the issue on.
How was the notification sent out for this? Obviously, it feels to me like a notification was sent out to short-term rental.
And that was going to be my comment, is that was the effort that we put forth for tonight's meeting was to notify the licensed short-term rental units that this proposed ordinance is being presented. It's coming before Public Works and Protection. Without knowing, obviously, this change affects very specifically and directly to the short-term rental business, if you will. We don't know necessarily specifically how this would impact just general residents per se. But to your point before, Jay, we can certainly, if that's the direction that the committee would like to entertain, is forward notification more directly to residents that are more impacted by some of these short-term rental units, and certainly invite them, like we did with this particular group, for a future meeting, and you can conduct it however you so choose with some type of open forum.
I just feel that's fair. Is to hear their side of it as well. And then I think that gives us as trustees the information and board members to be able to make the proper decision on it. I can definitely appreciate everybody's position here, and I think everything that's been said has been spot on. I get it, I understand it, but there's also residents in the areas too that have complained in that. I don't know that we really reached out to them to be here tonight to be giving their view of it, and I would like to hear that.
Well, I'm one of those residents of Chris's district, and I have one of the Airbnbs and rentals across the street. I don't like it. The people that own the house and rent it out do not take good care of it. They do not have limitations on their people, and our neighborhood really gets affected by that. It's noisy. It's smoky. They all got their grills going and their radios going. So if you are owners, then you better make your rules effective.
With all due respect, I think that's a policing matter on an individual level, not a broad stroke for all of us.
It is complaint driven, and I go along with you. If there's issues, call our safety department. We do not have people running up and down the streets looking at all these homes every minute of the day. But if you've got a complaint, make sure you call the safety department.
Gary, just for the sake of the record, we do have a closed floor, so if you do want to entertain additional comments, feedback from the floor, I would encourage you to open the floor again and have them come to the microphone.
Yeah, all right. I'm sorry, the floor is closed. In this hall, every meeting is published. You get a forum like this that tells you everything that's going to happen. So that's your first, if you don't have any way of getting communication, it's all available here at the Village Hall. All right, the floor is closed. We need a recommendation, what we're going to put back to staff, or where do you want to go with this?
I like the idea of having a license of some sort, because then we have a way to force people to be good neighbors. You know, you can have the threat of not renewing the license to make people, you know, make sure their renters are following the rules. I'm undecided at this point about the 6 days, though. So I don't know.
Want to make a motion on something?
So should we make a motion to have?
I think I would like to make a motion that we send this back to staff for further consideration. I know what you told me about what state can do, but I would like it to go back and see if we can't get some information from residents that live in these neighborhoods. To Chris's point, you know, we got to keep our neighborhoods sound, and we can say that right now, but I know if I go to a lot of those places, and I appreciate the one owner that said that, you know, he's got a doctor and families, and that's great. But I also know there's a lot of them right now sitting absolutely empty, and that's not great. And that's, you know, we have to balance that against what the residents are looking for and what the residents' complaints are. So I think I would like this to go back to staff to solicit residential people in these areas that are single families, to solicit that information to help us with this decision. So I recommend that we table this and move it back to staff.
I'll second it.
All right, we got a first and a second to recommend, or go back to staff and see how we can do this. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. One other thing, this is a committee that gets recommendations. We refer it one way or another, but it does go to the village board. Those were the decisions that are made. The decisions are not made here. We're gathering information for that, so pay attention to the village board meetings when and if this all comes up again. So appreciate you coming in. Thanks for your input, and I'm sure we'll be seeing each other again. All right, moving on to item D.
Oh, thought we were done.
Action on regarding proposal ordinance amendment regarding portable toilets. Aaron again.
The proposed ordinance is to address complaints that we receive from residents, some trustees, and regarding the use or storage of portable toilets in our neighborhoods. And there's some complaints we receive, and as staff, basically the best we can do is give people a call or stop in and say, hey, would you mind moving your portable toilet because it's bothering a neighbor? There's nothing on the books that would allow us to really enforce anything, to say, look, your toilet it's been there for 6 months and it hasn't been moved and it's been there every day. So the proposed ordinance is meant to provide some framework within which portable toilets in residential areas can be used, but at the same time used in a manner that's respectful of the neighbors and rest of the neighborhood.
Aaron, according to what I am reading here, as long as it's within the properties of the owner, not in the right-of-ways that are in properties with lines and whatever else involved in properties, they can have that toilet sitting anywhere.
So as long as it's not in the right-of-way, that's correct. So we looked at requiring it to be in the side yard or backyard. The reality is that it's practically difficult to do. A lot of homes have fences. A lot of homes have tight side yards where you can't bring the toilet back in that area. So just for, again, practical difficulties, it seemed to make sense to leave that open. But again, the timelines that will allow us to basically enforce when it can be removed and when it can stay is most important from an enforcement standpoint.
So we have a time period of 36 hours before and after. You know, I do not like what is proposed because, and I'm bringing this back up again, garbage containers, recycling containers have to be behind the front of the building, of the property owners. But it's all right to have a bathroom sitting there so your neighbor can look at that all damn weekend. I do not like where we're going with this. If we're going to do anything, ban the doggone porta potties, period. Get rid of them. The intent was to park cars, not to have a full service resident.
Although Gary, if in construction situations and also.
Construction is completely different. I'm talking about R1 and R2.
Yeah, and there's weddings that are held in homes where they've done it. And I think there are instances where it is a very helpful thing.
It can be if they come in and get a permit and the permit tells them what they can do with it.
Right, and that's why I think the 36 hours before and after, I think that's good. I thought this was fine. I really did. I didn't see an issue with this.
I disagree.
I mean, but you point back to the garbage cans, which is a different issue.
I don't care what it is. Why do we have to look at a porta potty? I got a constituent that'll call me every time. I have to look at this damn da-da-da-da-da-da.
I think part of the reasoning for some of the technical aspects of the ordinance, the 36 hours, the location and stuff, is just making sure that there is still appropriate access, if you will, to some degree, because the unintended consequence of not having a toilet facility available in those types of events results in probably more public defecation, which would you rather, I guess, have? And that's part of the reason why I think we wanted to be somewhat accommodating to that need, because 80,000 people are going to be walking through neighborhoods on Packer game days, and if there's the possibility of having a portable toilet available to them with ease of access, they'll use it. If there's not, they'll find another means to utilize their facilities.
Well, I think when you come to an event, you find the bathroom when you get there and when you leave. You're not going to find it walking down the street and using this John Doe's one sitting up on his front yard. That is not the purpose of it. I don't know. That's my opinion. Get rid of them. Somebody else wants to make a motion? I'll listen.
I'll make a motion to recommend the approval of the proposed ordinance amendment to the, and send it to the village board.
And a motion?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No.
No.
2 noes. Okay. Lose again. Okay. I guess that one will have to work for now, which I disagree with. Moving on to item D. Nope, we got D done, got the potty done.
Yeah.
Item E, action regarding proposed ordinance amendment regarding regulations of tent timeline. Aaron.
This came up as a result of a number of tents, regulated tents. Let me clarify that regulated tents, basically those are 400 square feet or larger. There's some changes if there's sidewalls on them, so on and so forth. But basically during Packer games, when tents are left up beyond just the back-to-back Packer games, as we've typically allowed just as a matter of course, there's been some issues with these regulated tents, again, those that require a permit, 400 square feet or larger, that are left up for longer periods than just the back-to-back Packer games. So what this does is, again, it provides us an enforcement mechanism to basically codify those time limits. So again, if we have a Packer game back-to-back, certainly you can leave the tent up as has been a matter of course for the past X number of years. But if you're dealing with something where there's 2 Packer games and we're away for 2 games, you can't leave the tent up until the next one. So this gives us that ability, again, when we receive complaints, to take enforcement action based upon the code.
The only question I got on the last 2 items, who's going to enforce all this?
That will be our code enforcement officer, our fire inspectors, and quite honestly, me.
And do they work on weekends?
We do have public safety officers who do.
Okay.
Yeah, I do agree with you, Gary. I think with all of this stuff, the code enforcement, again, which you point out many times, is a challenge. I think it's something that I would like to recommend, that when we're looking at budget this next year, we're going to have to do something. We have to add staff in that area. There's no doubt. It's, you know what, and if it impacts the budget, it impacts the budget, but we have to start getting some people out there to be able to enforce this. There's just too many things for the amount of staff that we have. I can't say they're doing a terrible job, because, my God, there's just too many things.
And Jay, I appreciate that, and we can talk offline as far as what some of the timelines are and plans that we're working on here.
Okay, good. So we're just talking about the timeline for the tents, but I agree with you, Jerry.
Yeah.
Need a motion. At least we got something that I could be in favor of.
I'll move to approve.
Got a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Well, we didn't do too bad tonight. Next, items for next agenda, anything you got, bring them to staff. I'm sure they will take a look at it. If there is nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this party.
So move.
Second.
First and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you very much. We had a good meeting.